everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review, and today's review is in association with MarvelousNews.com, your #1 news source for everything Marvel. And today we're going to take a look, kind of an early look, at one of Hasbro's upcoming Marvel Legends Infinite Series X-Men figures with the Marvel Now Cyclops figure. Now I say kind of an early look, and I don't really consider this this isn't a full-on review. This is an early sample that was sent to me from overseas. So I don't have packaging, I don't have the build-a-figure piece to show you, and it's possible that the final release version could vary some from what's seen here, especially like with things with like paint apps. So this is just kind of to give you an early look at the figure. We'll be providing you a full-on review of this figure. Shardamus will probably be providing you with that for us on Marvelous News once the figure is actually released. And these figures, this wave of X-Men Legend figures will be released as Toys R Us exclusives, as well as it's a shared exclusive with previews, so you'll be able to find these figures in comic and specialty shops. These figures should start showing up on the shelves of Toys R Us towards the end of July, and you should start seeing them in the comic and specialty shops in August. So this figure, as I mentioned, is based on the Cyclops character's most recent comic that you see him wearing in the comic. So I really like that we're getting a modern version, the most modern version of the character already in figure form. Usually by the time we get a figure of a character, they've moved on to a different costume in the comic. So I really like that we're getting an actual figure kind of at the same time, you know, that he's wearing the costume in the comic books. You know, we saw that with the recent Marvel Now Captain America, and we're seeing it with Cyclops in this wave. So I really like that the figures are kind of keeping pace somewhat with the comic books. Now this figure is primarily just a repaint of the previous Cyclops figure that they released with the Astonishing X-Men Cyclops. The only difference is the difference with the head sculpt. Doesn't have the visor sculpted on, it's got the red X. But otherwise these figures are pretty much identical as far as sculpt goes. The one other difference is this figure, the Astonishing X-Men figure, has the kind of pointy finger hand for his left hand, so that he can kind of like hold it to his visor to shoot. This new version has two closed fists. The paint apps on this figure are pretty good overall. There's not like any kind of shading or washes used. It's basically just a basic black with the red striping throughout the costume, but it's pretty accurate to what you see in the comic books. I like how they've added this belt, which has the X painted on the buckle, and the pouch is sculpted on. It's a separate piece from the figure. It's not removable, but it is actually a separate piece from the figure. As I mentioned before, this figure has two closed fists as opposed to one like pointy finger to do the I-beam like you usually see on previously released Cyclops figures. Okay, so articulation wise, this figure is really good, and if you have that Astonishing X-Men Cyclops, then you know what to expect from this one, because it's pretty much exactly the same, but we'll go over it real quick just the same. The head is on a ball hinge joint, so he's got really good up and down movement with the head. He can look really far back and really far down, and he can look left and right. Arms are attached at the shoulder with your standard ball hinge joint, so he's got good rotation there. He's got the bicep swivel. He's got the double jointed elbow, so he's got good bending at the elbow. And then he's got the swivel hinge wrists, so he can do his wrist up and down, and he's got the swivel rotation. He's got the ab crunch, so again he can bend down really good at the midsection, and he can look back pretty good as well. He's got the rotation at the waist. The legs are attached with the ball joints, so he can do the splits pretty good, do his leg forward pretty good, and then kind of out and back. He's got the thigh swivel, He's got double jointed knees. He's got a calf swivel, and then he's got the ankle pivot. So, and he's got 2 peg holes at the bottom of his feet. Okay, so this figure stands at just a little bit over 6 inches tall. He's basically the same height again as that astonishing X-Men Cyclops. And here he is next to that figure, as well as the old Toy Biz Marvel Legends Cyclops in his classic costume, and then, which again about the same height as that one, and then also the first astonishing X-Men Cyclops that Hasbro released, which is a little bit shorter than these other Cyclops. I don't actually have or I can't find actually my Jim Lee Cyclops, which I know is on the short side, and I never picked up that more recent all-new X-Men version that's in the box Toys R Us box set. So I don't have that one to compare. But I think that one was probably using the same body mold as this one, if I'm not mistaken. So it's probably about the same height as well. Okay, so that's my quick review. Overall, I like this costume except for the mask. I'm not a big fan of the red X. I prefer the traditional visor. But otherwise, I like this costume. I like the color scheme. I like the belt. I kind of like the, they didn't give him the pointy finger like we typically see. And I also, what I really like about this figure is I like that we're seeing the most modern version in action figure form. Usually by the time we get a figure of something, in the comics, they've moved on to a different costume. So, that was one of the reasons why I like the Marvel Now Captain America that was recently released, and that I like this figure as well. Again, not a huge fan of the red X over the eyes, but that's not the figure's fault. That's more of a design issue of the costume. So, as I said, these figures will be hitting Toys R Us stores and comic and specialty shops at the end of July and into August. So once that get a final released version, we'll be bringing you a full-on review, including the packaging and the accessory, which is a Build-A-Figure piece for Jubilee and such. So that's my review. Hope you enjoy it. Until next time, I'll check you later.